What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. This is TWA Motorsports, and today, yes, we are working on the Vette. Now, it's in the garage, guys, and normally I work out here, but you can see there's a storm coming in, and the wind is supposed to be like 40 miles an hour today, so I'm going to attempt to do this stuff in the garage. It's going to be kind of cramped. I may have to move some stuff around. You can already see my ruckus, or my towel holder for drying towels off that I've used is sitting out here, but we are going to do several things, and this may be a two-part video. I will tell you guys, a couple weeks ago, I pulled this thing out and I was going to lower it because I hate the look of it. And when I started to do that, the bolt on the very first bolt I tried on the driver's side was completely seized up. Now, guys, I used heat, I used penetrating oil, I let it set for 24 hours. It is not moving. So there's a couple options when you have that. Obviously, I could take that out, probably take it to a shop, and or take it to a buddy's house and have him weld a nut on the end of it and probably get it loose. But honestly, the lowering bolts aren't the greatest method of lowering these. While it's easy and cheap, it's probably not the best. And so we are going to do kind of a little bit of a makeover. I did get the windows tinted, and you guys aren't going to be able to see that until I get it outside, which I will show you at the end of this video. But like I said, it may be two-part because we are going to do two things. And I'm going to kind of ruin the surprise here. But I bought new wheels and tires, so that is what we've got right here. We've got Z06, C6 Z06 wheels. Now, it's a pretty aggressive offset for the back. It's probably going to stick out about 1/4 of an inch. Now, the tread will be under the car, so it's really going to look nice, I think. I've seen a lot of them done, and so we're going to put those on. At the same time, we are lowering it. Now, what are we using to lower it? I've got my stuff of videos that I'm going to be doing at some point over here. Viking coilovers, guys, is what I'm going to be using. Now, this kit came with 0 instructions, so it's going to be a learning process for not only you guys, but it's going to be a learning process for me as well. I've got it up on my race ramps already, and the reason I did that is obviously I want to get it high enough up where I can slide a jack under the front. The back isn't an issue, but the front, you just really can't get under the front of these things, and we are going to lower this thing. It's going to be low. You can kind of see my window tint here, but anyway, I did take some measurements, which I never do, guys. I never take measurements like when I drop stuff, and I don't know why. But the front, 27 inches on the driver's side, passenger side 27 inches, driver's rear 28 and 5/8, and the passenger rear 28 3/4. So it's not completely level, which is pretty common. They just run these things through, get them out at the factory, and of course this has had a ton of time to settle. It's obviously a 99, but I'm going to see if I can set you guys up on a tripod. Obviously, the very first thing I'm going to do is get the front wheels off, get this thing off the ground, get the front wheels off. And I might do some cleaning, and that's why I think it might be a two-part video, because I'm probably going to clean the inner fenders while I've got this thing up in the air and everything taken apart. I'm just one of those type people that likes to clean parts while I'm taking them out. So let's get this, we'll get the thing off the ground. Like I said, I'll set you up on a tripod, and hopefully we can do this without a ton of weather interruptions. I think this is just going to blow through. I don't think it's going to last long, but you guys shouldn't recognize that since we're in the garage. I just hope that I can get some good lighting for you guys to be able to see what's going on. But let's get these wheels off and get started. So I went ahead and got the front wheels off, as you can see. And guys, you know, I drove it up on the race ramps, lifted it up from the front, and then I have my K-Tech jack pucks in here with a jack stand underneath them. So honestly, the best way to lift these cars if they're on a lift is to use these pucks, or the way I lift is from the back cross member. So not the front one, but the back. Once I get it up far enough, that's when I set it down on these. So I just wanted to show you guys that. That is the most stable way to have these cars. But now we've got this apart, we need to do some disassembly. So the very first thing we need to do, and I'm going to go grab a light here in a minute, but we need to take loose these upper 15, I think they're 15 millimeters, to pull the A-arm loose. We also need to take loose the sway bar end link and the bottom of the shock. So we're going to get all this stuff loosened up, and then we'll take the shock completely out of the car. Obviously, we're going to be replacing the bottom leaf spring. You guys can hear it's lightning and thundering. But we're going to go ahead and take the leaf spring out, this transverse leaf spring, because all of this is going to replace that, which honestly, guys, it's going to give it a way better ride. But I'm going to go grab some tools. We'll set you guys up on this tripod and see if we can knock some of this stuff apart. So the very first thing I'm going to take loose is the sway bar end link, and it's an 18 millimeter, but chances are, guys, it's going to spin. And so the center of it is actually 5.5 millimeter, and so that's what I'm going to put in here to see if we can keep the inside from spinning. While we take it apart. And it looks like it could use new end links, so I may have to order some of those while we're doing this. We'll just see. They look pretty beat up. The bushings are completely trash in them. Once we have that out of place, I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the end of it so it doesn't roll off on me. And we're going to move on to the top of the shock. So down here, the top of the shock is a 13 millimeter. Now, there is a 13 millimeter on the bottom as well, so we're going to hit both of those. I am going to go ahead and unplug this as well, just to try to keep it from getting damaged in any way. And at this point, I'm going to move up to the top here. It's going to make some noise, sorry. And get these 15 millimeters that hold the top of the A-arm in place. So you can see them right there, my light's right beside them. I'm going to loosen those first with a wrench, and then I'll pull them out with the impact. Now guys, there is a spacer or a washer on the back side. Just make sure you don't lose those. They do like to fall out of place. Now the reason I'm taking these out by hand at first is because there's some horror stories of them stripping. I've taken these apart a couple times, not on this car but on other Vettes, and I've never had one strip, but just in case, I like to loosen them by hand and then just barely hit my impact to pull them out. Now I will put them back in by hand, of course. Once you get them out or loose, then you can pull this down and out of the way. And like I said, you guys can see, actually this side has two. And I'm just going to leave them in place. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. The back only has one. So keep that in mind if they happen to fall off. Make sure you put at least everything back that you have taken apart. So now, we need to go ahead and take the top of the shock mount loose. Obviously we already got the bottom, but we need to get the top. Now a couple people go from the top side, like under the hood, but if you have a ratcheting wrench, guys, you can get to this from the bottom. If you want to take the, you have to take the coolant reservoir loose and fold it over in order to get to it from the top. I'm just not going to do that. To me, it's easier just to sneak a ratcheting wrench down here, and they're not that tight. So I'm going to get that out next, and we should have this side completely disassembled. So as you can see, to loosen this, it's a 15 millimeter. And guys, I've got a pair of vice grips on the top post. That's another thing that if you go from the top, chances are it's just going to spin. That inside stud that pokes out of the top is going to spin on you. So I like doing it like this because obviously you can't get a ratchet on it if you go that route. So we'll get this thing off of here and get the shock out of place. Now once you get it all the way down to the end, you can pull the nut off the top and hopefully your shock will come out. The rubber bushing's probably been in there. Well, I mean it's a 99, so it's been in there a minute. Sometimes they come out with it, sometimes they don't. I'm going to put this back on the top, and everything is out of the way. So at this point, I'm gonna go knock the other side out. I'm not gonna show you guys that process because you really don't need to see it. It's the exact same as this. And then we'll move into the part where we have to take the transverse leaf spring out. So I'll go knock that out and then we'll move on to taking the leaf spring out. So now that we have both sides unhooked, we need to go ahead and take the leaf pack loose here. So just 13mm bolts, one in the front and one in the back on both sides. So a total of 4. We're gonna take those out and hopefully we're able to pull this thing to one side and kind of dip it out between the control arm here. But if not, we may have to loosen up our tie rod end in order to swing that out of the way and get the room that we need. But we're gonna try to take these 13s out and see if we can get this thing out of the way. So now that we have both of those out, we're going to attempt, and I've already slid it over a little bit, we're going to attempt to slide it over and get enough room to where we can thread it out. But I don't know, we may have to take more apart in order to make this happen. It's really, really close. I think we may have to unhook our tie rod, which I think that's just an 18mm, guys. I think I'm going to go ahead and unhook that and see if we can get it out of the way. So I actually think if we just do one side, we might just be able to get it out like that. So I'm going to take this one side tie rod out. And I think it'll come down far enough to where we can go ahead and get out basically the rest of this. It's almost there, guys. It's probably like maybe 1/4 of an inch from coming out. So once we loosen this, it'll come down, and we're hitting the bolt on the bottom of the AR, or the bottom of the spindle here. So I think once we get this side loose, this will drop down and we'll be able to go ahead and thread it out. So just loosening that, I was able to pull out, and the leaf spring actually fell out. You guys can see it's turned over there. So it's on the ground on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and drag that thing out from under the car. Now that we got that thing out from under the car, I think, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start doing some cleaning. Now, I'm just going to concern myself mainly with the inner fenders at this point. You can see there's like cobwebs and stuff. This car had sat in a garage for quite a while, but I'm going to see if I can clean some of this up, and I'll kind of show you guys maybe a time lapse of me cleaning it a little bit, and then we will go on to assembling what needs to replace the leaf spring and all this shock, and so basically the coilover will show you the coilover assembly. While this isn't the most fun thing to do, it needs to be done, and so a lot of people ask me what I'm using for all-purpose cleaner, and I just literally use Purple Power is all I use, just diluted down to clean this up. So I'm going to spray this down. Like I said, I'll time lapse this for you. I'm going to go over it once with some just paper towels, and then I'll follow it with a microfiber, and I'll probably use a toothbrush to scrub a lot of this stuff off. But the first pass I'm just going to make with wiping it down with a paper towel. now that we've went over this a couple times, it looks a lot better, and I can live with this. So it's not perfect by any means, but hey, I'm gonna drive this car, guys, so it doesn't need to be perfect. I just wanted to clean it up as long as I was here. So now we are ready to go back together, obviously with the new shocks or struts or coilovers or whatever you want to call them. I'm gonna go show you guys what all comes with this kit, and we'll talk about what we need to assemble. So when you buy this, it comes with a 400-pound front spring, comes with a 450 for the rear, and that is the kit that I chose to go with anyway. And then obviously it comes with your coilover itself, and it comes with both the adjustment sleeve, and it comes with torsion bearings, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then obviously your bottom mount and your top mount. So what we're going to do is assemble this, but before we do that, it's very important that you put some anti-seize not only on the threads themselves, but you also need to put it on the torsion bearings. So basically what I do is I put it's sandwiched together, and I put some on each side of this to try to keep this thing nice and free spinning while we're making adjustments. So I'm going to show you guys kind of hopefully in a time lapse me assembling this shock, and then we'll move over to getting it into the car itself. So there is some stuff you have to assemble here, and so you have 4 snap rings. One of these, or 2 of these snap rings, are to hold this bottom base in. And so we get this slid into place, and it's not the easiest thing. It's got to be perfectly square. Go in. Anyway, once we get it into place, there's a snap ring that goes here on the inside to keep it in place. This may be easier said than done. There's a little channel in there that it sets in. And that side's in. The other side may be a little bit harder. But once we get that in, then we can put the T-bar set up in the bottom. I really wish this came assembled, guys, and you didn't have to do this, but not hard if you have a pair of snap ring pliers. So that's in place. Now I gotta grab another pair because we need to go the other direction for these. So the T-bar slides into place, and then you have 2 of these to hold it on. So I'm gonna go grab my other ones, and then we will hopefully get this last 2 snap rings in place. So I've got my other ones set up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put one side on, and then we can slide it through and hopefully get the other side on. I will tell you that you have to put quite a bit on these in order to get them in place. It looks like we are on. So that is how that goes together, and then you can see it doesn't move at that point. And you can rotate these if you want them in a certain position. They can slide around, not a big deal. Anyway, now we're ready to put the spring on. So we do need to extend the shock. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and put some, oh my goodness, what a mess. Put some anti-seize on the threads here. And then we're going to go ahead, smear this around. This stuff smells terrible, guys. Smear this stuff around, and we're going to thread on the bottom portion here. So this guy here, and the collar goes up that you see. I'm going to spin this guy all the way to the bottom. And this will actually help spread that out anyway. Once we get that one on, went all the way till it stopped. You might want something to wipe your hands with handy. So now I'm going to put just a little bit on the inside of this, just for good measure. Same thing here, we're going to go all the way to the bottom. And then we'll follow that. I won't take that all the way to the bottom. So these guys, keep them in order. And you want some on both sides here. Some on this side, some on the other side. Put that into place. Then we're going to put some on the actual bearing themselves. And this is messy, so no way to avoid it. And then the last one here, put some on it. Once we get that complete, then we can get the spring on. So I'm going to wipe my hands off and we'll get the spring ready to put into place. Now I'm going to grab the spring, so we're going to slide it on. Get it into place, and then our top piece, as you can see, just sets in there. And then you can compress this if you'd like. So it's up against like it's supposed to be, which is what I've got here. Now I generally like to face these all the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to face this opening on the back side. It doesn't really matter. I don't know, that's just me. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to face it on the spring. Where it's on the other side of the opening here. So, we are set and ready to go back in the car. Now that we have the spring on, I'm going to go ahead and put one of your washers and a bushing on, and the other two here are going to go on once we get it in the car. Now you do have two of these nuts to go on the top side. One is obviously a jam nut, so we're ready to get this one into place. We're now ready to put this new one in, and I will tell you guys that the bigger end of the bushing, is going to be the one that mates up against the mounting post up here. So let me see if I can move the camera up a little bit. I'm going to put the top in first. So like I said, make sure that you have that facing the correct direction. And then once you get it into place, you may have to move some stuff around here. You can go ahead and grab the top plate, which I totally lied to you guys. You need the bushing on it first. So we'll put the bushing on and then the top plate. And same thing, the bigger end goes towards the mounting point, so the smaller end faces up. Then we can put our washer on the top and see if we can get one of these started. Once you have the shock in place or the coilover in place, you want to make sure that your adjustment knobs are facing out, so you have the ability to adjust them, and we can go ahead and start to tighten this thing. And it's going to want to spin in the center, but you've got a spot here that's a 3/4 inch that you can hold it. So that makes it really nice, way better than taking the factory ones off where you don't have that option. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up, and then we will get a jack, and we're probably going to have to lift the suspension up in order to connect the bottom T-bars down here on the bottom. And you do reuse the factory bolts that came out of your old shock in order to fasten those to the bottom. But I'll go ahead and knock this out, and then we'll move to the bottom. At this point I have the jack underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and thread these guys, at least start them back into place. That'll just take some weight off of the suspension. And I'm going to do that all the way around. I didn't completely snug up the top bolt here because we may have to do some adjusting, and I wanted to have some wiggle room down at the bottom. So just gonna start these a couple threads, and I still got to come up a little bit in order to get down to where the T-bar is gonna bolt down on the bottom. But we're gonna start these. At this point I've got it, those top A-arm bolts snug, and I'm ready to put these T-bolts in. And like I said, you're gonna reuse the old ones that came on the car. So we just got to drop them into place. On both sides, and then we'll be able to snug them up and try to get you guys some torque specs. Very first thing I'm going to torque are these 15 millimeters up top here, and they go to 48 foot-pounds. That's not very much. Now I'm going to go ahead and torque these bottom T-bolts to, and we're torquing the nut on the bottom side, not the bolt, and those guys go to 21 foot-pounds, which isn't very much. Now we're going to torque the stabilizer, so the end nut here, to 53 foot-pounds. Hopefully the center's not spinning. Like I said, I'm going to replace these, but I don't have any, so I'm going to have to wait for them to ship. And they are very close, guys. I will tell you that until I lifted this suspension up, it was actually touching the spring, and so was the upper part of the A-arm. So the last thing we need to adjust here is we need to go ahead and snug this top bolt down. Now, I don't have a spec for it. I'm just going to get it snug, and then there is a jam nut that tightens down on the top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the jam nut on after I get that snug. We can then move to the other side. I'll finish it. I won't show you guys that because it's the exact same. And the only difference being is I did undo the tie rod end over there, but I'll talk about the torque spec on it when I get to it. Outer tie rod end that I took loose on the other side, guys, it goes 15 foot-pounds, then 160 degrees, and then 33 foot-pounds. Really odd. Anyway, we've got everything tightened up. I will tell you guys the torque setting on this top one, it doesn't have one, but what it says is to tighten this down until the bushing sticks 20 thousandths over the washer down below it. So I've still got to tighten this one up a little bit. The last thing I want to do before I put the tire on, though, is I want to measure. I've got this all the way down to the bottom here. So the very bottom, basically the locking portion of the coilover, I've got that all the way down, and I'm going to measure from there to here. I'm going to make that equal on both sides. Now the kit does come with spanner wrenches, so you will be able to adjust that, and the one with more teeth on it is the one that actually adjusts this guy. The one with the least amount of teeth on it tightens the bottom one. So I'm going to go ahead and measure from top to bottom, and it'll give me a good starting point because we have no idea where we're going to set, but I'm going to make this one match the other one. I'm going to go ahead and put the wheels on, and we'll get the front set down. Now, I probably won't make a total adjustment until we get the whole thing down, but I'm going to get the wheels on anyway, and then we'll move to the back. At this point, the one other thing I forgot to tell you guys, make sure you plug your ABS line back in, but I'm ready to put these tires on and at least get the front down. Now, it may be hammered, I don't know. I measured about 2 3/4 inches of space between that lock and the top, and then I went ahead and ran that jam nut up. So chances are, like I said, we're going to have to adjust a bunch, but let's get these wheels on, get it on the ground, and see what it looks like. So I have the race ramps back under it. Not sure even with that I'll be able to get the jack out, but we're going to try it. I think it's going to be hammer time. not as bad as I thought. But you have to realize the suspension hasn't came up in the car, so we'll just have to see. I don't know. We'll have to get to the back, get it out on the road and try it. At this point, I'm onto the back, and just so you guys know, I did the lift here on the back of this cross member right here, and I also put the pucks that I had installed in the front to the next hole back. So there's 4 holes total, one in the front, one in the back on each side. I went ahead and put it on jack stands, so we are good to go. So we have about the same amount of stuff to take apart back here in the back as we did in the front. I think what I'm going to start with is I'm going to go ahead and take the leaf pack out. And the reason I'm going to do that is on the bottom back here, so I don't have to move anything around. It's literally, there's a snap ring on the top side of that bolt. I'll probably spray a little PB Blaster or WD-40 on that to kind of loosen it up. We'll go ahead and get that snap ring off and take those bolts out, and then we should be able to take the same bolts out in the center and get the leaf pack out of the way. Once you get the snap ring off, and you can see that I sprayed that, I'm going to go ahead and take this bolt out. Now it's 21 millimeter on the top and 18 on the bottom, so I'm going to zip these out on both sides, and then we'll move underneath and get the leaf pack out of the way. Got the bolts out on both sides, so the driver and passenger, we need to get these 13 millimeters, very similar to what we had in the front. The good thing though is, as you can see, it's under the A-arm, so this is just going to come right out once we loosen these up. Now that we have the leaf pack out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and knock loose the sway bar end links. Now chances are they're going to spin like the front ones, so we'll probably have to put something in the center. And yes, they are spinning. Now guys, I am using a T40 in the middle of these. The next bolt that I'm taking out is the bottom one in the bottom of the shock, so it goes all the way through. And guys, I'm pretty sure it's metric, but a 15/16 it fits pretty snug, and so that's what I'm going to use. I don't have a wrench to put on the other side, so I'm going to have to use an adjustable end wrench, but I'm going to go ahead and knock this out with the impact, get it out of the way. I'll also do the other side. I'm trying to go back and forth, just showing you guys one side, but once we get that, then we'll attempt to get either the upper A-arm here loose, or we'll go up and try to get the top of the shock. Need to take, there's 18 millimeters here that go in the upper A-arm and on the back. Now there's a stationary nut on the other side, so you don't have to worry about getting something here where it's hard to reach. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 18 millimeters out, and then that will relax this, and we'll be able to get to the two 13 millimeters in the top of the shock itself. So we're going to get these out, and guys, I think we'll be able to sneak just this stuff being taken apart. I think we'll be able to sneak the new coilover into place. I'm hoping that I don't have to release anything else. I probably could have got away with not taking the sway bar end link loose, but we'll see when we go to put the new strut or the new coilover into place. Now that we got the A-arm out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and take these two 13 millimeters out that hold the actual shock into place, and then we'll be able to pull it out of the way. Now that we have the shock and the A-arm loose, everything's out of the way. Before I assemble the other one, I am going to take some time and clean this up a little bit, and I won't show you guys that. It's just the same method I used in the front. I'm just going to get some of my all-purpose cleaner, scrub this all down, wipe it down real good, and then I'll show you guys how we're going to assemble the rear coilovers. They're a little bit different in the fact that there's a T-bar mount on the top, and as you can see, there's like a cutout for the bottom to set on the A-arm. So a little bit different, not too much. I won't show you guys a ton of that because most of it's the same, but I will show you the T-bar hookup up top. So these are almost identical to the front. The only difference is obviously the connection on the bottom, but we need to put these guys in just like we did on the front. So there's retainers to keep this in the pocket, just like the other one was. And then there are retainers to keep this in line. Now, I will say that the shorter end, this is offset, so the shorter end of this is going to go inside to the inside of the car. And you're going to use your factory hardware to bolt all this up. But I'm going to get these assembled really quick. And same thing, we need to put some anti-seize on the threads. That is a big yellow notification when you buy these. If you don't do that, they will void the warranty. So make sure that you put plenty of anti-seize on the threads, but we'll get these assembled and see if we can get them in the car. So we're ready to put these things in. A couple things you need to know is the adjustments, they go on the inside. And the T-bar on the top, the short end goes towards the center of the car, so the long end facing out. We're gonna go ahead, try to put this thing in. And you should have enough room to get it into place without taking anything else apart. The very first thing I'm gonna put in is the bolt on the bottom, and we want to run it in the exact same way it came out. So the bolt came in from the back side and the nut was on the front. So get it into place. I may have to move some stuff around here. Now we got it on. So now I'm going to grab the two 13s and get the front or the top of this into place. In order to get this high enough to get the 13 started, you need a jack underneath the bottom A-arm here. We're going to lift this whole suspension up, give us a little more room. The shock's extended as far as it'll go, so we need to lift it into place here. Just enough to get them started. Remembering the small end goes towards the inside. We're ready to tighten these uppers to 22. Sorry, I said 21 earlier. 22 is not very much. Now that I've got both those torqued, I'm going to go ahead, we're going to get our A-arm back into place. Same thing, guys, these only go one direction. I'll get them into place, get these started, and then these torque to 81 foot-pounds. But I'm not going to torque these until I lift the suspension up, because I don't want to tighten them down like this. I want to go ahead and pull the suspension up where it's going to set. Now we're ready to go ahead and torque these since I've got the suspension loaded. And it shouldn't take much here. Now 162 is quite a bit. And there we are. We're good on that. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is right there where I unhook the sway bar end link, I'm going to go ahead and hook that back up. That gets tightened to 53 foot-pounds, same as all the others, like the ones in the front. So I won't show you guys that. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on, tighten it down, and then we're going to get some adjustments here on this spring. Now that everything's torqued down and tight, I'm going to go ahead and let the suspension down. And we can get our top part of our coilover assembly back in place. And what I like to do is have it facing, so where the spring is, let's see if you guys can get a little closer here. Where the spring breaks, I like to keep this opening on the opposite side of that. I don't know that that's imperative, but that's the way I like to do it. So at this point, I'm going to push pressure up all the way to the top, and we're going to spin this bottom ring until we get to that point. So now that we have the tires on, you can see that you do have plenty of adjustment room. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set the adjustment knobs here. Now your compression is on the left, and counterclockwise is negative. So it should, if you want to go all the way to 0, and then the rebound is on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and set those to the comfort settings that are in the manual, and we'll see what happens. We'll get it on the ground, maybe take it up and down the road, and then we'll try to get some height adjustment probably. So we now have it outside, and it's lower, but it's not as low as I want it to be. So I knew this was going to happen. You kind of set them and see what you're working with, and then you have to go back and make some adjustments. So a majority of why it's lower, I think, is because the tires are a little lower profile than what was on it before. And I will say, guys, these wheels look great on it. The offset is pretty aggressive. You can see that when you're looking down the side, it has about a 1/4 inch that it sticks out. And this thing is so dirty, I really want to clean it, but I want to finish this up first. So anyway, I love the look of it. The only thing that my only complaint is I need to adjust it. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to undo that lock nut on the bottom. We're going to lower the spring down in its perch a little bit. Now on the back, I tightened it up until the top. So there's a little plate that sets on the top, sets in the top of the strut. Now when you start to loosen that, sometimes you're going to have to pull the spring over as you lower the suspension down, because with the suspension fully unloaded, sometimes it doesn't want to go into its pocket. So I'm going to probably have to do that in the back. The front, though, I have quite a bit of adjustment before that's loose. So I'm going to go ahead, lift this thing up, and then I will show you guys what it looks like after the second adjustment here. On the last one, and before I set it down, I wanted to show you guys exactly what I was talking about. So when you get the spring far enough down, it doesn't set up in the channel like it's supposed to, this piece on the top of the spring. So while you're lowering it down, you need to make sure that that goes into that pocket. So the other thing is the opening on this needs to be in the back. That's just in case while you're lifting this up, you don't want it to fall out. I mean, it's not hard to put back in, but that's another reason why I like to put it on the back. I will tell you guys that on the front, I'm already finished with it. When I went to lower it down, it fell right into the pocket. So chances are it's going to, but you just need to make sure that it does. So guys, here we are a week or two later. It's probably been about almost 2 weeks now since I lowered it. And this is the second adjustment. And I think that's exactly where I want it to be. This thing is hammered. And I love the look of it. Love the look of it. With the tinted windows. And one of the reasons I wanted to wait is I wanted it to settle just a little bit. So I've driven it a couple times, and then I also was waiting to get my license plate cover back from paint. It's looking great. I can't even fathom how much better that it looks now. slammed on the ground. The windows are all blacked out. And guys, I can tell you for a fact, this is the best riding Corvette that I've owned. So obviously we've had the C7 Z06, we had the C6 ZR1. My wife had a base model 2009 LS3 car. Best riding car out of all of them. That suspension is by far the best I've had on one of these. Now, we still got a lot to do on this thing. I want to do some paint correction. The paint is just not up to snuff. And as a matter of fact, I really didn't even want to pull it out here because the pollen is crazy. But I wanted to show you guys what it looked like. So I think the next thing I'm going to do though is we got to get rid of this dorky antenna, and I got to do some planing. My wife's got me busy. Anyway, yeah, I want to get rid of that dorky antenna, so it obviously doesn't look good, and looks like I need to wipe down the windows again. But guys, on the windows, so I did 5% all the way around, 35% on the entire windshield. These are stock C6 Z06 wheels. Tire size I will list in the description down below. But let's talk about how much it came down. So I did write it down, which is not normal for me because normally I don't write anything down as far as before and after drops. So when we started, around 27 and 5/8 was the front, and the rear was around 28 and 3/4, 28 and 5/8. So now, after the first adjustment, we did go down about an inch, that first picture that I showed you guys. But after this adjustment, we are 25 and 15/16 in the front, and 25, that's the front driver's side front, and then the passenger side front's 25 and 5/8, so it's pretty close. Driver's side rear 26 and a half and 26 and 5/8. So way different. What is that, about 2 inches, almost 2 inches of drop? And believe me guys, oh my gosh, I wish that you could go along with me for a ride. You wouldn't be able to tell me driving it down the road how much better it rides and drives with those coilovers on it. It's just crazy. Anyway guys, it's hot. I'm gonna go in the house. I'm gonna put this thing up before it gets pollen all over it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Obviously we did quite a bit of stuff here. We put new wheels on, we slammed it, got the windows all tinted out now. So it's starting to look like a vehicle that I would own. And oh my gosh, I'm sweating. It's 84 today. It's supposed to be like 50 tomorrow. So tomorrow would have probably been a better day to film this. But anyway guys, if you do like this, if you think this looks a lot better, go down, hit that thumbs up button. Hit the comments, let me know what you think. If any of you guys have experienced coilovers on a Corvette, tell me how much better you think it is than the stock transverse leaf spring. Because it's, honestly, if I buy another Corvette, this will be the first thing I do. It's that much better. Anyway guys, if you're not subscribed, go down and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there, you might as well smash that bell icon, and that'll let you know every time we drop a new video. Until then guys, stay tuned to see what we work on next.